Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Samurai Goddess. The goddess next door takes on kung fu killers in this action-packed martial arts Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Samurai Goddess in paperback and e-readers today. I went into the CW's Black Lightning with lowered expectations. When I heard that Greg Berlanti, Mara Brockakill, and Salima Kill were involved with the production of this show, I came in knowing that the bar was going to be low because Greg Berlanti has serious issues with black men. All you have to do is take a look at his previous CW superhero shows like Arrow, which features a bumbling, stumbling Mr. Terrific, a character who in the comics is the world's third smartest man and is on a level with the Black Panther of Marvel Comics and Batman of DC Comics, John Diggle, the butler, who just is there to serve Oliver Queen's needs. And then you have The Flash, where Wally West has been emasculated and then run out of town. And then you have Legends of Tomorrow, which features the neutered and asexual Firestorm. And then you have Riverdale, which featured Chuck Clayton as a black brute, and Supergirl, which featured James Olsen, who is constantly emasculated and humiliated at every passing turn. So I knew Greg Berlanti had issues with black men, and Mara Brockakill and Salima Kill, they've had issues with black men as well because on their shows, Girlfriends and The Game, they went out of their way to present black men in a numerous negative light. So I came in with lowered expectations, and this show exceeded my expectations by lowering the bar even further because what we see in the CW's Black Lightning is not a show about a black character. We see a show that is created by white people to present their idea of what a black person is to the audience. And that's what really prevents Black Lightning from actualizing its potential as a black superhero show because it's the white person's idea of what this black person is and not a story that is told from our perspective and our experience in the same way that Netflix's Luke Cage was told. Now, when I look at the CW's Black Lightning, it makes me think about a video I made many years ago called Black Through a White Lens. And what we got on the CW's Black Lightning was black through a white lens. Instead of us seeing a story that comes from black people, by black people, and talks about our experience, our history, our culture, and our experiences, no, we get a show that presents us with the white liberal's view of black people and what he thinks black people are like. Because as I watched this show and I compared it to what I saw in Netflix's Luke Cage gave us a show about Luke Cage, a man who was having his own individual life experiences, having his own culture, and sharing black culture with other black people. And as we watched that show, we saw this character come to life. We saw the culture of the black community come to life. We saw the culture of Harlem come to life. And we saw the black experience come to life. And that's what made Luke Cage unique and distinct and something incredibly special. But with Black Lightning in contrast, we don't get characters, we don't get people, we get ideas of what black people are and figures of representations of black people. And that really creates a one-dimensional viewing experience because each of these characters is designed to be a representative of a certain group of black people in the community, not be their own individual person, their own individual character, or have their own individual voice. Jefferson Pierce on this show is not a person with his own voice. He's a figurehead for this good black man, this responsible man who wants to take responsibility for his community. And that really prevents him from having any depth, any layers, and any of the substance that Luke Cage had on Netflix's Luke Cage because he's an idea of a black man, not a person. He's this good black guy who is supposed to be extremely responsible and conscientious, and the show opens up with him having to deal with one of his daughters who is an SJW who decides to go down to the protest rally and against the cops, and then she gets arrested, and then he comes to go pick her up. And as he's picking her up and taking them home, he gets racially profiled. And the way they do this, again, really is about presenting an idea of a black man and the way a black man should act, not present us with a person and how a person is in real life or a person is in the black community. It just gives us this idealized person and the idea of what this should be. And that really, again, hampers your viewing experience and really prevents you from connecting with Jefferson Pierce in the way you would connect with Luke Cage. With Luke Cage, you saw a man who was his own man, who had his own voice, who had his own personality, and was observing the world around him before he thought about interacting with it. But with Jefferson Pierce, we see a guy who is looking to be this perfect, good black guy, and he wants to be this paragon, and it sucks the life out of that character. And as I watched this whole show, Black Lightning, in the initial first 5 minutes, I was starting to get turned off because they spent their time telling me about Black Lightning, and they didn't show me Jefferson Pierce as a person. They showed me his idea, his ideals, but they didn't show me a person that I needed to care about. They showed me a figure in the community, and that's just not enough when it comes down to this character. And his daughters also suffer from the same shallowness. You have one of the daughters, again, who's this medical student, this athlete, this SJW who's out to fight for rights. And then you have the other daughter who's in high school, and she just wants to go out and party and just live like a regular teenager. And then you have the street gang known as the 100. And again, all these characters, they don't become people, they become figures. And as you listen to all of these characters talk, they all talk in speeches, and they talk at you instead of talking to you in the same way the characters in Netflix's Luke Cage talked to you. When you listened to Luke Cage and Pop talking about their experiences, they became people. When you listened to Cottonmouth talk, he was a person. When you listened to him talk to Mariah, they were people. But when you watch Black Lightning, they don't become people. They become figures, and they have no depth and they have no substance. And as I was watching the show and it was going along, you had Jefferson Pierce. They show him being racially profiled, and the next day he's not frustrated or angry. He goes to this event at his school, and they're honoring him. The state senator honors him, and he has no residual feelings. He has no anger. And then we cut to his daughters, and one of them is getting ready to go to this club, and then again, he has no feelings about anything. He has no real emotions about anything. He's not really thinking about anything. Nothing is there. He's just the good black guy who just puts up with stuff. And that's not what a black man is. I mean, when I look at Luke Cage, he was passively sitting there, but he was waiting to see why he should get involved. He was showing us why he needed to get involved with the community. We saw the problem, but we don't really see the problem with this one until his daughters decides to go into this club where she had no business going, and then we get these gang, the 100, and again, we don't really get any substance there. We got this guy, he's wearing an 80s jogging suit, and then he's talking about things as related to this gang, and the girl is in the club with this gang member, and they bring her into the room with this gang member, and then Black Lightning goes into action, and then after he goes into action, he runs into the white cops, and he shoots the white cops with lightning, and then he blows up the police car, and it has no real substance to it. None of it has any sort of substance to it. It's like everything just comes together, and then after he gets wounded in the battle with the 100 and then with the police officers, he goes to the white tailor, and then that's when I really started to get really turned off with this show, because they make it like every white person was a bad guy in the show. All the white cops are all bad, even though they work for a black police commissioner. And then all of a sudden, he has to go get stitched up by this white tailor, and the white tailor comes across to me like an old slave master, and he really talks to Jefferson Pierce in a very paternalistic way, and that's really something that really turned me off, that he needed to be motivated by this white man in order to go into action, and he needed the support of this white man to go into action. In contrast, when we looked at Netflix's Luke Cage didn't need a white man to help him out. He went out and did what he needed to do after taking a look at the black community, and he wanted to do what was right for the black community because he wanted to do it. And that was one of the things I liked about Netflix's Luke Cage, was that he was his own man. He did things on his own terms, and it was a show about black masculinity being defined by black men on their terms, not a show where this black character is meant to be this idealistic paragon and that he needs a white savior to come in and show him how to do things, because after he does that, he then goes over and tries to negotiate with the guy in the jogging suit. Then his kids get kidnapped, and then he goes to the tailor, to get his suit, and he gets to be a hero, but he only is a hero once the white person signs off. That was something that really turned me off about this Black Lightning show, was seeing that in order for Jefferson Pierce to go out and clean up his community, he could not do it on his own like Luke Cage was trying to do against Mariah and Cottonmouth. No, this guy has to go, he has to get his suit from the white man, and he has to get approval from the white man before he goes out to go clean up his community. That was a real slap in the face as I saw it. Something really passive aggressive about this show. Passive in that they gave you a black superhero, but he could not be a hero unless he got the white man's stamp of approval. And that's not, to me, what a black superhero should be. A black superhero should be a hero because he cares about the community and he wants to do right by the community, not because somebody told him this is what he needs to do. Black Lightning is back, but he's not back on the right terms. He's back because he got his sign off from the white man to go attack these other black people. And that's again, there's some racism in that he has to go against these black people for white people. Another thing that really turned me off was the constant talking about prostitution and the proposal that these guys talk about prostituting the daughters and all this stuff. That really turned me off as it related to the presentation of black women on this show, because that really did not really need to be there. I mean, it was an element that didn't need to be in the script, and it should have been cut away from the script. If these are good daughters, then present them as positive daughters, and you can make them hostages and stuff like that, but you didn't need to put that element in there. That was, again, showed me the racism in this script and how white people see black people and not how we see ourselves. Now, the other issue I have with this show was the presentation of the bad guy. And this bad guy, Tobias Whale and this 100, they're just not strong enough to be compelling villains in this show. I mean, as I see it, we have moved far past the whole street gang versus the black superhero. That was something that was done in the 2-hour pilot of Mantis back in 1994. Here we are in 2018, and we have Iron Man, who can fly in his own armor, Captain America, who throws his mighty shield in Captain America movies, Thor, who throws his hammer in Thor movies, Wonder Woman, who can use her magic lasso, and a Justice League. And the best Black Lightning has to take on is a street gang. Come on, we can do far better than this, and Luke Cage showed us we can do far better than this with the complexity and richness they presented us with Black Mariah and with Cottonmouth. With Cottonmouth and Mariah, we got depth, we got complexity, we got soul, we got everything as related to the black experience. But in this show, we get a street gang straight out of the 1990s. And that's one of the other big problems with Black Lightning. It does not feel like a 2018 superhero show. It does not on the level of a Supergirl or an Arrow, and it's not even on the level of a Marvel Studios movie or a Netflix show like Luke Cage. It feels like a 1990s show, and it reminded me so much of Mantis. I mean, when I watched Black Lightning, it was like watching Mantis again in 1994. And again, that shows me how limited Salim Akil's and Mara Brock Akil's imaginations are, because they really did not get too creative when designing the show. It just felt like a show from the 1990s. It didn't have any sort of creativity with the visuals. It didn't have any sort of creativity with even Black Lightning's costume, and it didn't have any sort of creativity with the dialogue. None of it had any weight or any substance, and it really that really was sad, because I'd like to think black fantasy could move past the 1990s. I mean, Blade came out in 98 and did stuff that was far more innovative than anything I saw on the show. And I'd like to think over the last 20 years, we could have had something far better than what was presented on screen in Black Lightning. Because what was presented in Black Lightning, again, looked like something out of the 1990s in terms of special effects, in terms of costumes, in terms of visuals, and in terms of story. And as a writer of fantasy myself, I could think of 100 different things that were far more imaginative than what was presented in this Black Lightning show, because I write those kind of stories, and I believe we can do better than a black superhero versus a street gang. I mean, when I write ISIS stories, I've had her take on Nubian queens, Greek gods, cyber goddesses, vampires, Dracula, and when I had John Haynes, he takes on the devil, and he took on a ancient African despot who was out to conquer the world. And with Eaststeam, I had her taking on Morgan Le Fay, and I had her taking on various demons and monsters. And again, it's like when I look at Black Lightning and I think about the stories I write, it shows how limited their imagination was and how limited their vision was as related to trying to create this black superhero show. And this black superhero, Black Lightning, and his show, again, reminded me so much of what white people want to see regarding black people, these ideas about black people, these figures of black people, but they don't become actual people. And that's the big problem with Black Lightning, again, is that it feels like somebody's ideas about black people and somebody's ideas about the black what a black superhero should be. And because it's all ideas, we don't get to see this character come to life where they have their own personality, their own voice, and tell their own story through pictures and show us why we should care about Black Lightning. Now, I came into this not expecting much, but I didn't expect to be disappointed this badly. This show is not great at all. It's extremely poor in terms of quality, poor in terms of story, and poor in terms of characterizations. It's supposed to be an adaptation of a DC comic, but it shows me that there was not much imagination in this adaptation. Yes, it stays somewhat true to the source material, but it doesn't do anything to elevate the source material. When I look at Netflix's Luke Cage, it made an effort to elevate the source material and take it to another level. The black production company that produced Luke Cage gave Luke a distinct personality, gave him a voice, gave him a story, and then incorporated parts of the black community and the black experience into it, and gave us a rich, deep, unique picture of Harlem and the people of Harlem that felt so real that it literally led to so many people having to watch this show that it crashed its server. Now I look at this show, and it looks like after one episode, it's got a lot of work to do, and that work desperately needs to be done to try to fix this show, because what I saw in that first episode was just not top quality. It was not up to par in terms of an adaptation. I mean, in 2018, we should be doing something far better with a black fantasy show than having a black superhero taking on a street gang, and we should have far richer and more complex stories than this, because as I look at it, over the last 20 years, African American fantasy and science fiction have evolved, they have moved to a higher level, and our adaptations need to move to a higher level. If I can go out here and create stories on the level of a Marvel Studios, then what is to stop people who have millions of dollars like Mara Brock-Akil, Salim Akil, and Greg Berlanti from producing something on that same level? When I look at Black Lightning, I see a show that's far below par, and I see a show that shows me black characters, not characters that are black, and why we should care about those characters in a way that makes us want to tune in to the next episode. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of the SJS Direct titles like the ISIS series, the East Dean series, and the Temptation of John Haynes, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.